Elevate TV, advancing kingdom lifestyle.
Ladies and gentlemen, welcome to another episode of the GG Report. I'm your host, Godfrey Gishoke, and I'm glad you're tuning in. If this is your first time, please remember to subscribe, especially if you're following us on the media platforms. Please remember to subscribe to our YouTube channel, Facebook page. We are live on Elevate TV Kenya, Facebook and YouTube channels. We also are live on Elevate TV, free to air. Welcome to the show. This is going to be a very, very interesting conversation. I have an interesting guest with me here. Our subject today is Faith Wairimu for President. This is a woman's dream. And welcome to the show, woman of God.
Thank you.
Wairimu Faith.
Yes.
How are you doing?
Great, and thank you for having me today. I'm blessed to be here.
Very good.
Yes.
Excellent, excellent, and welcome to the show.
Thank you.
Very good. Ladies and gentlemen, I'm going to introduce our subject and I'm going to tell you what we're talking about, and then I'll take time to introduce our guest to us, and then we can get the conversation underway. Right. If you remember Lupita Nyong'o, who won an Academy Award for Best Actress a few years ago, a Kenyan-born woman, said all dreams are valid. Then some 1 year, I think 2 years ago, Eliud Kipchoge broke the world record for being the first man to run a marathon under 2 hours. And then he told us, no human is limited. So the question is, who said a woman can't be Kenyan president? And for that matter, the woman seated next to me right here, Apostle Faith Wairimu, or Wairimu Faith. I think you prefer being called Wairimu Faith.
Yes.
Right. So welcome to the GG Report. As always, the GG Report is a platform for big, bold, and honest conversation on matters socio-economic, philosophical, political, and everything in between. And today, this is another political conversation. I have a presidential candidate on the set, and we're going to have a very, very serious conversation. And now, let me just introduce you, a very, very brief introduction. My guest is Wairimu Faith. She is the founder of Manifest Sons of God Church and an independent candidate for the August 2022 presidential elections. Apostle Wairimu Faith is ordained as an apostle. She was ordained in the US, and she holds a bachelor's degree in education and an MBA. So she's going to be telling us her story. As always, we always begin with the stories, and then we can talk about politics, what she is up to. Welcome to the show.
Thank you very much.
Very nice.
This is going to be exciting.
This is going to be exciting, and I really want us to go full throttle.
Yes.
You have already stuck your neck out there.
That's right.
And you're going, for the top seat.
That's right.
As they say.
Yes.
So let's begin from. Tell us about yourself, your journey, and what inspired you to pursue the presidency of the Republic of Kenya, this wonderful nation.
Thank you. It is a beautiful nation. It's a wonderful nation. And it's a nation that we must think about the future. Mm. And just to tell you a bit about myself,
yes.
I am from Nakuru County, a very nice small town called Njoro, very quiet. But Egerton University puts us on the map. We aren't so small. And that's where I was born, grew up, went to a primary school there, high school, went to Molo, a wonderful school called Marymount.
All right.
And then university will bring me to Nairobi when I came to the University of Nairobi. And I enjoyed being in Nairobi. So I told myself, once I'm through with university, I'm going to stay in this city because it had opened up to me in marvelous ways. When I went to the university, my parents couldn't afford to pay my school fees. And so I had to look for a job. And by the grace of God, I got a job as a research assistant at Maragua constituency. Then I was working for the Honorable Elias Mbao.
Okay.
So I worked for him. That's how I was able to pay my school fees and, completed university. And one of the things that my life definitely is characterized by is that my brother had a heart problem for 25 years. Mm-hmm. So from 1989 all through to 2013, when we were able to take him through an open heart surgery. And so today he's okay, although he has to live on medication. Mm-hmm. And so I grew up knowing that the worst thing that can happen to anyone is disease. Mm-hmm. Because it just started like something that we didn't think was going to take 2 days, because the doctors didn't think it was that serious, other than the fact that whatever it was had changed his skin color. He's a bit darker than me, but his skin color had changed to yellow. Mm-hmm. But we didn't think that it was going to take that long. And lo and behold, it lasted 25 years. Okay. And the 25 years, I saw what disease can do to a family, especially family finances. It just drains everything. And it leaves people, struggling financially. And that's my story. So
So you studied, what did you study at the University of Nairobi?
I studied education, linguistics, and literature. Mm-hmm. I post a lot on my Facebook page about Achebe, because we read a lot of Achebe, Ngugi wa Thiong'o. All right. Henry Gibson. It was really interesting. Uh-huh. And then I would graduate from the University of Nairobi. I did a bit, short jobs, as you try to get your footing. Mm-hmm. And then I would get a stable job at Safaricom in the year 2006. And then after that, I will get another job at NIC Bank. Mm-hmm. And then after NIC Bank, I went to the US. There's something about education that always, made me happy. I felt fulfilled when I taught people. Mm-hmm. And when I helped people to move from the unknown to the known. Okay. So I went to the US, taught for a bit, then came back, consulted for a few months, enjoyed the world of consultancy a lot. Mm-hmm. And then I would get a job with the US Embassy here in Nairobi. Okay. To oversee education. Okay. Wonderful experience, again, going back to the world of education and working with students. In the year 2014, I would be challenged by what I've seen in my country. Kids who are A students, amazing, brilliant kids, but they're either orphans or they come from families that cannot pay school fees. And because I'd been through that, I could see how if this situation is not dealt with, these kids will definitely not go to university. Mm-hmm. And I talked to my supervisor and I said, I think we need to start a program for these kids who would love to go to the university, but they cannot afford it. He asked me, what do you have in mind? I said, I think we're going to start a scholars program. He said, let me talk to my supervisors. I'm going to get back to you. And as God will have it, I had an okay on it. So I started something called Education USA Scholars Program, which is still running to date at the US Embassy. And the purpose of this program was to bring in students from financially disenfranchised backgrounds, but highly academically talented, and who had no capacity to go study in our local universities here. Mm-hmm. And we took them to the US. We have hundreds of them in Ivy League universities who've now graduated. Mm-hmm. And today I have alumni all over the place in Facebook, in Microsoft, in Google, JP Morgan, McKinsey, huge corporations in the US and in Europe. Right. And I will then leave the US Embassy, at the peak. Nelson Mandela says, the greatness of a person is when you know when to leave. Okay. So I left at my peak. And then I thought I was going to, chill a bit, relax a bit, because it had been a very high impact job. Mm-hmm. Then I got a job with the US government, again under Education USA. And now I will get a job that put me in charge of 19 countries in East and Central Africa. Mm-hmm. And I was going to oversee US embassies and consulates in those countries. And again, now help people who are doing my job, help them to take students from their countries to study in the United States. Okay. But guess what happened? COVID hit me right when I was joining this new job. Mm-hmm. And I had to help my team navigate it. And by God's grace, three of my team members received global awards during COVID. Okay. So I was very grateful. And then March this year, I said, you know what? I know what is in my heart. It's time to resign from my job and pursue it.
Right.
Yes.
Okay, very good. I think that's a very, very interesting journey. I think we all have our journey.
Yes.
And so you've described, some of the problems, some of the key problems you observed, you've observed over your career, say, this problem of affording schooling.
That's right.
And then health and affording, health, affording health.
That's right.
And you think those are two key problems or challenges that we face as a nation.
And I think...
So tell me what exactly inspired you to pursue the presidency? I mean, why the president?
It's been a long journey. It's been a long road coming.
Yes.
Again, being born in Nakuru County, in 1988, I was a small kid.
Yes.
And then we had to leave school suddenly and go home. So when we got home, I asked my parents what was going on. They said, there's been a bit of commotion because there was something called Mlolongo.
Yes.
And so we had to go home.
Yes.
And then I was like, okay, whatever that was. But I was told it's a queuing system. It's an election, something that was happening. All right. And then that was 1988. 1992, we would be in school studying when commotion happens and people are running and they're full of blood and arrows. That's the first time I saw arrows. That's the first time I saw so much human blood. And all of a sudden the school was closed and we had to run. And so we are running out, and thank God my parents came, picked us, and we went home, and everybody was very, very, very disturbed. And so I asked my parents, what is going on? They said it's an election. And at this time I started thinking, election means bloodshed. It means violence.
Okay.
By the time it's 1997 again, we go into another ethnic clashes moment. So at this time now, my mind is totally crystallized that anytime we have elections, blood has to be shed.
Okay.
And it bothered me. And I kept on wondering as a child, why do we have to have these elections if people are going to die? And then you would hear so-and-so's father died, so-and-so's auntie died. So it wasn't just a statistic. It's people that you could relate with that had died.
Okay.
And later on now we will come to 2007 when we have now serious clashes. And I began to think, and I began to write a lot of things that I wrote in 2008. And this is what I thought to myself, other than many things that I wrote, that we needed a person who was neutral in the presidency. A person who was not going to flare up the emotions of people and cause people to fight. And if we had two people who were going to cause people to fight, that we would have another voice, another person that people would vote for and people wouldn't have to fight.
Okay.
And so that has been my inspiration. And coming now to this year, looking at the troubles that faces, and I look at these problems and I'm like, whatever we faced in 2008, most of those problems are still here today. And I have the solution. So I have the solution. I want to run. Absolutely.
Absolutely. Okay, very good. Ladies and gentlemen, as you follow this conversation, we are talking with Apostle Wairimu Faith, and she is actually has already done her paperwork. She's going to tell us more. She's going to go in as a presidential candidate on an independent ticket. And so I'm going to be asking her a number of questions. Maybe she can tell us about her agenda.
That's
so
right.
Actually, as you can tell,
yes,
I want you to take time and, describe your agenda.
Yes.
As a presidential candidate.
Thank you.
You never know that some of the people watching here have the wherewithal to mobilize Kenyans.
Yes.
And get them to vote for Wairimu for president.
Yes.
Okay.
And I believe that this is a huge opportunity for people to hear me and to share the message that they're hearing on this platform.
Yes.
One of the things that I'm very passionate about is education.
Okay.
And last year, I attended a conference in India, and we were trying to think about the Indian education system and how we are going to set that education system to a place it benefits their kids. And so I thought about what my daughter is studying, and I realized that COVID had changed the world. But we haven't changed anything to make sure that our kids are relevant in the next 20 years. The world has changed, it will never be the same. And that is one thing that I want to do. I want to make sure that our education system makes sure that the children that go through our education system remain relevant by the time they're through with school.
Okay.
And that they're not only relevant, but very competitive, because we live in a global world.
Let me hold you there. Do you think that by studying literature, at the University of Nairobi. That is it still relevant for you? Do you draw from that background?
I draw from it, but because of how quickly the world has changed, I've been forced to study other things to remain relevant.
Okay, that's what you mean.
Yes.
Okay, very good. Education.
Yes. And so one of the things that my administration is going to do is to make sure that our education system is tailored to relevance, significance, and competitiveness of our children once they're through with school.
Okay, very good.
The second thing is for us to look at the teacher. Having taught in the United States, I used to have classes that had a student-faculty ratio of 9. I'd have 9 kids that I was going to teach. And one of the things that I realized is that when you have fewer children to teach, is that you open up an opportunity for them to ask questions. So there is learning that is happening. But when you have big classroom sizes, that child will leave your classroom with a question that you will never answer because there wasn't time.
I can give you the data. Where I live here in Nairobi,
yes,
I live very near a primary school,
yes,
a public primary school.
Yes.
And I normally take my daughter there in a specialized, class.
Yes.
But the small children, the classes, when I peep through, and I even have the information,
yes,
or rather I've been given, I asked actually how many students are in this primary school. That primary school has 2,800. And the average number in the class is 100.
That's right. That's
pupils seated behind one teacher.
Yes.
Absolutely. That's the scenario in Kenya.
And you see, the danger of that is that we tell children what we want them to tell us back in the exam, but really we do not have quality learning that is going on. And so our children are passing through school. They're passing through school, and we're saying, hey, we have 100% retention, we have this number of kids in school, but we really don't have any learning that is going on. We do not have quality education within those classrooms.
Okay.
The other thing is, that teacher who is teaching 100 students has sometimes over 40 lessons to teach in a week. Is it possible that we can reduce the classroom size and give these teachers time to reflect on what they have taught? Is it possible that we can have something we call office hours, that students can come and tell the teacher, in the reflection time or in another time, you taught this, I did not understand. Is it possible that we can structure these things?
Okay.
Now, the other thing about teachers is that my mother is a teacher. I have prayed for TSC for so many years because there's always this thing about we want more salaries. Please add our salaries. And from the time Adongo was the head of TSC to now, it's been a story. The kids who were born then, they're through with university. But no one really has looked at the plight of the teacher. And it is time for my administration to make the teaching a profession. Make sure that the teacher is treated as a professional and that whatever they need as a teacher to teach students in the 21st century, students who are going to use a lot of technology, not only are professionals, they are well remunerated and they have the resources that they need in that classroom.
Absolutely. Okay, that's, I like the precision, of your thinking, and there are details, obviously.
Yes, there are details.
Perhaps you might not be able to enumerate all the details that are in your manifesto. But so there is, so we've talked about education.
The second thing,
yes,
is the economy.
All right.
We lost over 735,000 jobs during COVID.
Yes.
Before COVID, our economy was struggling. So we had lost jobs, companies had closed down. And so we are in a space where so many people have lost jobs. And the thing about our African culture is that if I am employed, that salary doesn't benefit me alone. It benefits my parents, my siblings, my cousin there, my nephew there who needs my help. So when we say one person has lost a job, it's not one person who has lost their livelihood. It is one person plus everybody else who is in their circle that has been relying on these people.
Okay.
Now, when we look at our job market, the SMEs are the biggest employers of Kenyans. Again, the SMEs weren't cushioned against COVID and most of them shut down. And one of the things that is a priority for my administration is to make sure that we cushion SMEs, we cushion business people. We reduce the cost of energy for those who are in manufacturing. Because if you look at our energy, we have 16% on electricity. We have a very high fuel levy tax that we need to cut out. If we're able to reduce those excess costs, reduce the cost of energy, then manufacturing becomes tenable, and the manufacturing world will be able to employ more people. Now, having said that, you cannot divorce our economy from corruption. Our president told us that we lose 2 billion every day from corruption.
Yes. So, and I think, sorry to interrupt you, Faith, that I guess that's one of the worst. Is it a gaffe or I don't think whether the president really, I mean, he's going to be held liable for that statement. 2 billion a day lost.
It's a lot of money.
And that's coming from the president himself.
Yes.
Admitting that.
Yes.
Okay, speak to that.
I want to speak to that because, when we talk about corruption, we give it a beautiful and a rosy name, corruption. But corruption is death. It kills things. It kills parastatals. It kills businesses. It kills opportunities. It kills human dignity. Somebody who would have gone to the hospital, gotten treatment, or gone through surgery, is going through surgery. I was praying for somebody who went through surgery, but guess what? During the surgery, the doctor realized there was no oxygen. The person is brain damaged up to now. That is what corruption does. It kills people eventually. Now, for us to be very genuine and honest that we want economic growth and economic prosperity, we have to eradicate corruption.
Okay.
And for us to eradicate corruption is for us to ask ourselves, who are corrupt? Where is the corruption coming from? And for us not just to look at government and say, hey, government is corrupt, but also to look at ourselves. When I point at somebody, there's other fingers that are pointing at me.
Okay.
What do I do to create an enabling environment for corruption?
Okay.
There's a government office that I was working with, and somebody called me and said, hey, if you need this paperwork, you have to pay us. And I said, no. I said, if you haven't noticed, I'm vying for the presidency, and one of the things that I'm going to deal with is corruption. And I cannot pay you for me to get something from the government. Just giving an example. We need to look at ourselves. If I looked at that person and said, oh, I really need this paper. Okay, how much do you need? I enable an environment for corruption to continue thriving.
Okay.
So for our economy to grow, we need to kill corruption.
I agree.
Once we kill sorry, go ahead.
I agree. And I know, I think it's difficult to speak into, to say everything that need to be said about corruption. But you've said two things. You've said the people who, you asked who is doing corruption.
Yes.
So if you win the presidency, who exactly are you going to target? I mean, you got to start somewhere.
Absolutely.
You got to start somewhere to deal with this monster called corruption.
Yes.
Where will you start? Who will you start with, maybe?
One of the people that we've always ignored is the people we call the big fish.
Okay.
We don't pay attention to them. We don't touch them.
We have a lot of people promising to deal with the big fish, but yes, go for it.
And for me, the big fish is not necessarily big names. It is people who are given a responsibility to be in charge of public funds. And they are in a position to see whether these public funds are being used in the right way or not. But they keep quiet. They do not blow the whistle on it, and they enable corruption to go on. And then there are people who we've mandated as Kenyans to be in charge of various government offices, and this corruption is happening right under their nose, and they do not do anything about it.
Okay.
I'm sure we've had so many scandals, we can't keep count on them.
No.
And we have a big list.
Yeah, it's a laundry list, a very huge, it's really ugly.
Absolutely.
Okay.
And so those cases have been there. No one has done anything about them. And one of the things for us to fight corruption on the other side, and on my third point, is that we have to ensure that we have a totally independent judiciary.
Okay.
The judiciary cannot be a puppet of the executive, and we expect them to fight corruption.
Okay.
It is like giving somebody something with the right hand and taking it with the left.
Okay.
So my administration must make sure that the executive plays its role and leaves the judiciary to do their work. Okay. When the judiciary is free, guess what? The judiciary is going to do their work. Okay. And they will prosecute.
All right.
Yes.
What are you going to do about, I think I haven't heard anybody talk about whistleblowers.
Yes.
The last time, I think there was one of the big stories of a whistleblower was this guy who blew up blew the whistle on Golden Bag scandal.
Yes.
Was it in the late 90s? Late 90s. And then the story goes that this guy eventually actually died off the other day, I think a few years ago, a poor man, and nobody took care of him.
That's
so
right.
why should I be motivated to whistleblow if I think that I will not get anywhere, and probably I will be the ultimate loser in that whole scenario?
You know, it talks about our culture that doesn't reward merit, that doesn't reward values.
Okay.
And it speaks a lot about us and as a country and the things that we invest in. We do not look at somebody who is whistleblowing and saying, hey, government money is being wasted here. We don't look at that person as a hero and award them a HSC. We look at that person and say, oh, you are here to stop us from enjoying the benefits of looting public funds. And that discourages people who would have whistleblown. Okay. Having said that, we also need to ask ourselves, as government, when we say we're going to fight corruption, are we genuine? Because, you know, the Golden Bag case is a perfect example that you've just given, that the person who blew on that case died a pauper. Why is it that a government could not protect the people that were protecting its own money? This person was not protecting his personal funds. These are public funds. But when he was trying to guard the public funds, he lost everything. Okay. Okay. So education. Yes. Economy. Yes. And one of the elements in the economy is dealing with corruption. Yes. And then, of course, you've also mentioned within that, economy, the issue of power, for example, I mean, is a major input, economic element of the economic production. And then, of course, corruption, obviously being a part of the waste, problem, in that whole economic system. And most importantly, is cutting down the corporate tax. We are at 30% corporate tax. It's time to cut the corporate tax. Okay. Once we cut the corporate tax, it's going to help the SMEs and the corporates to reinvest more in the businesses. Once they reinvest more in the businesses, then guess what? They employ more people. Okay. Then, when we also look at the corporate tax, it also stops other people from coming in. It stops our FDI. It is time for us to make sure that our country is appealing to foreign direct investors. Okay. And they come and they invest here. When they invest here, we have jobs. Okay. I know there are some people who push back on the cutting down on the corporate tax, because they will say, no, look, you are going to be incentivizing the big guys, and so the dynasties, that sort of thing. Anyway, we'll come back to that. Ladies and gentlemen, we're going to go into a short break. This is a conversation with Faith Wairimu for president. Apostle Faith Wairimu is garnering for the president of the Republic of Kenya. She's giving us her story and telling us about her policies and her manifesto. We're going to take a short break. We'll come back. We'll continue with that conversation, and she will tell us more about what she is up to. Don't go away. Take a short break. We're coming back shortly.
Are you looking for quality, affordable dental services? Antodent Dental Center is your place. At Antodent Dental Center, we restore lost teeth and associated oral tissues with either permanent crowns and bridge, as well as removable, partial, and complete dentures. We restore discolored or deformed teeth with veneer crowns. We also align crooked teeth with both fixed and removable braces. At Antodent Dental Center, we do teeth cleaning and polishing to eliminate bad smell. We also do dental jewelry, root canal therapy, and oral health education. We are located at Accra Taveta Road Junction, London Beauty Building, 4th floor, room number A2. Reach us on 0707 367040 or visit our Facebook page, Antodent, Restoring Your Smile. Antodent Dental Center, restoring your smile with passion.
Welcome back. This is the Gigi Report. We are talking with a presidential candidate, my guest, Wairimu Faith, Apostle Wairimu Faith. She's decided she's going for the President of the Republic of Kenya. Eliud Kipchoge told us no human is limited. And I know that's a big issue. So, woman of God,
yes.
We are talking about your agenda. We've
right.
dealt with two things. You've explained what you're going to do with the economy and education.
Yes.
So what else is among your top agenda? What is the other agenda you have on the card?
So I'm going to talk about my top three. And my third most important agenda is agriculture.
Okay.
And then again, I'm a beneficiary of agriculture because my parents were farmers. And it's the food that we grew that we ate, and then we could sell the surplus and we'd go to school. So I know that agriculture is very important. Now, agriculture is also the backbone of our economy. And it is time for us to begin to pay attention to the small farmers. Because think about it, we are going to have a very huge food deficit just because of the Russia-Ukraine war this year. In the same year, our farmers have not had fertilizer for obvious reasons. Availability and high cost of fertilizer. For the ones who are able to plant, we've had an armyworm invasion that have just eaten people's maize.
Yeah.
So that again reduces on what we will have expected as yield at the end of this harvest season. So we need to begin to look at people we called agricultural extension officers. And we need to put them wherever the farmers are located for them to help the farmers to plan. Because if you do not plan, then your plan fail. They help the farmers to plan. These are the people who should tell the government how much fertilizer do we need in the next 3 years, in the next 5 years, for us to be able to pre-plan. We shouldn't be people who have a knee-jerk reaction to everything that we are going through in our country. We need to plan in advance. So the agricultural extension officers are going to come back in my administration, make sure that the farmers have the support for them to do the work that they're supposed to do in terms of farming, but also have the technical expertise. Now, we've also seen that farmers continue to buy very deadly pesticides, which have been banned in other countries. It's time to ban them here too. I know some companies are not going to be happy, but it is time, if these products and if these pesticides have been banned in other countries, it is important for us to ban them. Because at the end of the day, there is a correlation between what we eat and the diseases that we are struggling with.
Okay.
A lot of cancer. So if we don't catch these things in terms of the food that we are going to eat, then eventually the government has to meet very high costs in managing the health of their people. Cancer is one of the things that has really rocked our country. And the cost of treating cancer is very high. So just make sure that we are doing the right thing in agriculture and that we have the agricultural extension officers doing their work. The veterinary officers come back to help people in pastoralist communities. Now, if we look at what is happening in Marsabit right now, it's been a protracted war in Marsabit, and they're fighting over resources and other issues. It's not that simplistic. There are other issues that they're fighting with. Is it possible that we can support the nomadic communities with vet officers who are able again to help them, to guide them, to tell the government, hey, we have shortage of water, and if we do not deal with it now, it's going to be a cause of conflict within this community, because most of the warring communities are warring over natural resources.
Okay.
And then forestry. Bring back the forestry officers. Let them do their work. Let us plant trees. Let us make our country green again. And I think that this generation has been deprived of seeing how beautiful this country was and the amount of rain that this country used to receive, let's say 20, 30 years ago. So I'm going to make sure that whatever kind of agriculture you are involved in, You have support for it. The government plans for you because the government has to plan for its farmers because these farmers are helping us to make sure that our economy is growing and that it is vibrant.
Okay. So basically you're saying that there is a gap, this kind of a gap within the information, the kind of information that is used in planning, or
That's
rather,
right.
it's a weakness of the system.
Yes, it is a
there are
weakness.
systemic problems within the agricultural system,
Yes.
both in terms of information collection and then sufficient actors to
Yes.
support the farmers, so that they can be more productive.
That's right.
Okay. Very good. Very good. Yeah, so that's very nice. So three major, so I think we can rest that matter.
Okay.
Those are the big ones. I think any presidential candidate who doesn't deal with education, economy, and of course agriculture, which is tied to the economy.
Yes.
Obviously, perhaps, I don't know what else they'll be dealing with. Let's talk about how you're going to navigate through skeptics.
Yes.
There are people who hear this woman of God, of course, you carry the title apostle.
Yes.
Wairimu faith.
Yes.
So, and you're going to meet a lot of skeptics, who will just be wondering, you're a woman, you're a church woman, maybe they will put that label on you. Probably they also say you're young. They might also say you are inexperienced in public office. Of course, you have experience in the private and in the non-government actors field. How are you going to respond to those sort of skeptics?
Okay. So one of the things is that when you work for government, either it's your government or another government, it's government.
Yes.
So having worked for the U.S. Embassy is part of U.S. government.
Okay.
So that exposes me to government, how government is run.
Okay.
It might not be our government, it's a different government, but structures, by and large, are the same. But you're talking about skeptics. And one of the skepticisms that I face is that people are telling me, but how can you vie for this position and you're not from the big families, you're not from the big names?
Yeah, that's a big one.
It is, it really is. And I'm like, you're right, because I do not come from the big names. I'm really, my father's name, I don't think anyone knows it apart from me and maybe his neighbors.
Right.
And that, in the minds of Kenyans, disqualifies people to run for the presidency. Because they're telling me, oh, if you are from this family, then, it would have been easier. And it is time for us to begin to deal with those things. Is it possible that Mwai Kibaki, and may he rest in eternal peace, was not from the big family names, but he's a man that we appreciate for economic growth?
Okay, maybe we could
and
even say big family names are actually created.
They are created, yes.
Yes, so it could start with you, isn't it?
Yes, it could start with me.
Yes.
Absolutely. And my history might not be great in terms of the expectation of people, but I can make the history of the people that I serve great.
Okay. Yes.
The other skepticism, and you brought it out right, is about women. And when I look at that question, I'm like, when it comes to leadership, leadership doesn't have gender. You're either a good leader or a bad leader, period.
Okay.
It has nothing to do with religion, race, gender. It has to do with you as a leader. Are you capable of doing the work that you have been given to do? We have great women who have done great things. Angela Merkel in Germany had a 50-year plan for Germany, done amazing things in that nation.
All right.
Wangari Maathai, the Greenbelt movement. If it was not for her, we wouldn't have Uhuru Park today.
Yeah, that's her legacy.
Exactly. Strong women that we can recognize and still say that their legacy lives on and we still respect them even in their absence.
Absolutely.
We also have great men who have done a great job. So when we come to leadership, we need to disassociate leadership from gender, from religion, from race, and be able to remove the blindfolds that causes us to trip over the people that we choose and the people that we elect. Because once we start looking at somebody and saying, is this person a good leader? Then we are being honest in that conversation. But once we say, oh, that person is a man, we've already lost that conversation.
Okay.
Anytime you bring gender, marital status, race, religion, we fail to look at the things that would give us an opportunity to ask, is this person in a position to deliver, and is this person genuinely interested in what they want to do?
Absolutely, absolutely. So it should be about competence and not, not gender, not race, not
religion.
background,
yes.
History, and all that.
That's right.
Okay, very good. I think you got some answers, and you got some a lot of questions to answer because right. People. How about some people say, "Oh, she's a Christian woman."
Yes.
For goodness' sake, Christians stay out of politics.
I know, right? You've just rocked that boat.
All right.
Because that is one of the responses that I've received on Facebook.
Right.
And people say, "Oh, you are an apostle. You do very well as an apostle. Going into politics is a demotion. Why are you demoting yourself?" Mm-hmm. And my thought is, Christ came as a king, a priest, and a prophet. Mm-hmm. A king is a political office.
All right.
And every time he spoke, he said, "The kingdom of my Father." Mm-hmm. The kingdom of heaven. So he was here as a politician, and the Bible is a political book.
Okay.
And then looking at it, and the Bible tells me that I'm the light of this world, mm-hmm. that I'm the salt of this world. Mm-hmm. And if the salt is tasteless, then it's good for nothing, other than to be thrown out and to be trampled upon by men. Mm-hmm. When you look at that statement, it is not as simplistic as we would like it to be. It means that when Christians are not relevant to solving the problems of their time, they become irrelevant.
Okay.
And we have to ask ourselves, why have we allowed people to create a narrative around political leadership by saying politics is a dirty game? Mm-hmm. Immediately they say that, and I'm thinking, I am the righteousness of God. I pull back. Mm-hmm. What do? If every good man, every good woman moves away from their governance, then they leave every person who is none-good in that space. Okay. And then this is what happens, is that when we leave other actors who are not genuinely interested in us and who do not have the fear of God, because these are demigods, they're not submitted to anyone. Mm-hmm. And they have no sense of consequence. Mm-hmm. When these people come to lead our country, guess what they're going to do? They are going to ignore the important things to men, because they even forget that man is made in the image and in the likeness of God, and we must respect that. Mm-hmm. And when they ignore that, then you and I find ourselves in the church praying over policy issues. Mm-hmm. That I can genuinely come to church to pray and fast that 10 people get jobs. Mm-hmm. I can come to pray and fast over people who are sick in their homes. And when God looks at me, he says, you are busy, but you're not busy doing my work. Mm-hmm. Because my work is to pray for the kingdom of God to grow. It is not to pray for policy issues. And so the Church of Jesus Christ and the leadership within the Church of Jesus Christ becomes tasked, and they are employed by people that they give governance to that refuse to do their job. Okay. And so we are very busy as men and women of God praying over policy issues. That's not what we are called to. And it is time to turn around this. Okay. As you are aware, there is a caravan going on across the nation to pray for the nation. That's right. And there are going to be meetings coming up, as we roll towards the August elections. That's right. Do you think that church leaders, our current church leaders, and even the prayer movement and all the other movements, within the church, the body of Christ, trying to respond to matters, leadership, politics, of course, because that particular prayer caravan is actually praying for the nation. Yes. And praying that we'll have, a peaceful election. Is that enough? Can they do more? And what would they do apart from prayer? I think that faith without works is dead. Mm-hmm. Is it possible for us to pray? And prayer is good. But also, as we are praying, to do something about it. Okay. Now, watch this. Most of us Christians already know people who have said we're not going to vote. Mm-hmm. Why? Because it's the same two faces that I've seen from the time I was a kid to now. It's the same people, it's the same families, it's the same stories, the same narrative, so I'm not going to vote. Mm-hmm. Is it possible that as Christians we're going to say, hey, Apostle Wairimu is vying, different faiths, different strategy altogether for this nation, vote for her. Are we going to tell the youth that their voice matters? Because the youth really, wherever I've gone, the youth are not planning to vote. And they say, if I'm going to find your name, I'm going to vote for you. But if you're not going to vote, that day I'll watch movies the whole day. We cannot have such a huge youth population that is totally apathetic to the politics of the day.
Okay.
We need them to be engaged.
All right.
So we need the church, after praying, engage us. Tell us that we have a responsibility, our voice matters, and we have to go to the ballot and vote in the right leadership. Absolutely.
Absolutely. I love that that's coming from you. Yeah, and I think there is a message that needs to go to the leaders, the church leaders, that they need to get involved. They need to get their hands dirty. Even though they don't want to get their hands dirty, and by dirty I mean, not exactly sinful and manipulative, but get into the actual action.
That's right.
Absolutely. Okay. Where do you see, given your wide knowledge, you have worked in the US, you've had interaction with the US government. How does Kenya measure up as a free democracy? Do you think we really have free democracy, in this country, or are we just some African nation with the pretense of a democracy and there is no democracy? How do we stand up?
I would measure true democracy on the strength of whether we have free, fair, and safe election. I will also measure it on transition of power. So when it comes to transition of power, we are democratic because we have never really had a chaotic transition of power. But when it comes to elections, and elections really set the tone of the next 5 years, it sets the agenda of the next 5 years, we still have a long way to go. And I appreciate, Chebukati with the work that he's doing, but I believe that a lot needs to be done. Because if the youth, and I was having a conversation with a group of youths, and this is what they said. I told them, you need to go and vote, but this is their mindset. They told me, it's not about the person who casts the vote. It is about the person who counts the vote that has been cast. And so they said
that needs to be said very clearly. It's not about the person who casts the vote. It's the person who counts the vote.
The vote that has been cast. That is the person who decides who wins.
All right. I think you need to have a conversation with Chebukati about that. I hope I've got Chebukati, the chair of the
chair of IBC.
IBC.
I look forward to seeing him because these are things that I'm really concerned about.
And tell him to make sure that the counting is the most transparent.
It's the most transparent. And so for me, democracy, for us to measure whether democracy in our country works, I will base it upon the premise of whether our elections are free, fair, and whether people feel safe when they're going to vote. And the day we can answer those questions and say, was it a free election? Yes. Was it a fair election? Yes. Did every Kenyan feel safe to go and vote? Yes. Then we can call ourselves a democracy.
Absolutely. Absolutely. Now, let's go back to the idea of, forming a government. Because every presidential candidate, I can see this one makes you smile because you're looking forward to forming the government.
Yes, I'm ready.
Absolutely. Now, looking at the current government, if you were to form the next government, and you had to take one person from the current government into your government, who would that person be and why?
Kivutha Kibwana.
He's the governor.
Yes. He has done work in his county that makes his people proud to be part of that county.
Absolutely.
You cannot buy that sense of pride. It has to be something that you have seen, something that you have lived through, changes that you have seen, a genuine person that you have seen that has done something that you're proud about. Kivutha Kibwana, I'd keep him, and I'd be glad to work with him.
All right. Of course, there is one more little thing that I don't know, you don't have to answer now because maybe that's in the card. Have you already decided on your running mate?
We are having talks day and night I have an extensive team that we are discussing about, and we hope to see some white smoke tomorrow.
All right.
Yes.
Wonderful.
Yes.
Wonderful. That's wonderful. Okay. All right. So Kibuda Kibwana would make it in your list of government, ministers or whatever position.
Yes.
If you were to put somebody in charge of finance in this country, I mean, looking around, do you think would you keep, for example, the current finance minister, Yatani, would you keep him? And what are the other positions that you would make sure that you bring close to yourself? Because once the way I see the politics playing out, first of all, currently, all the coalitions, they are talking about 30%, 40% shares, that kind of thing. Things are being shared out.
Yes, they're being shared out.
So, assuming that whoever is going to be your deputy is also going to negotiate and decide that you're going to be 50%, you keep 50% or something like that, or maybe some coalition you go into, what ministry would you keep close to the presidency that you would make sure that, look, whatever else I give up, I will not give up this and this and this? Which one would those be?
One of the things about my administration, and something that I've been saying, is that if you know you are competent, then my administration is your administration.
Okay.
We're going to be looking at merit.
Okay.
And we will open up that space to say, are you the most competent person to handle the treasury?
Okay.
Throw in your applications.
Okay.
Let's look at them. And just make sure that we are giving people jobs per merit. It doesn't matter whether you're from Turkana, Samburu, Pokot. But as long as you have merit, we are going to give you the job.
Okay.
When it comes to how I've seen, and I've analyzed and studied our governments, I realized that some ministries, especially finance, the minister or the cabinet secretary for finance would be somebody who comes from the tribe of the president, most of the times.
Okay, okay.
But what I want to do, I want us to break from that culture and get into a culture of meritocracy.
Okay.
And that way we encourage our people to be the best that they can be, because they know that government is waiting for them to bring it in. Now, look at it. Our people today are coming to the church and telling us, woman of God, pray for me because I need to get a job in Dubai. Dubai is 51 years old. We are 58.
Okay.
So Dubai has just been born when we already were a nation 7 years later. But why is it that today we are kneeling down and praying and fasting for people in the church to find jobs in Dubai, whereas Dubai was born just the other day?
Okay.
It's about leadership.
Okay.
Singapore came and studied from us. And Singapore, we give a lot of credit to Lee Kuan Yew. Proper leadership. 3-4 years ago, I was in Singapore in 2019, and one of the cabinet ministers came and told us that there is a time that government had excess of revenue that it paid the citizens.
Oh, wow. Amazing.
And I just lifted up my hand and I said, do you mind repeating what you've just said? When he repeated it, I said, there is another way to living this life. And as Kenyans, we can choose whether we are going to be taxed until we die, or we can have favorable taxes.
Okay, absolutely. Amazing, amazing. So then that begs the question, and I have that question here. What is the one thing Kenyans are so blind about that keeps dragging us politically and economically? I mean, a blind spot. What are we so blind about?
I will say ethnicity.
Okay.
Mtu wangu.
Okay.
Mtu wetu.
All right.
I'm going to vote for Wairimu because my name is Jerry.
Okay.
And you do not look at me and ask me questions. And so when it comes to that euphoria of ethnicity, it also goes down with a very rotten system we call a 6-piece suit. It doesn't matter whether you are a crook, as long as you are in a certain party, itakuwa 6-piece. Ethnicity, 6-piece. We end up voting in people the day they get those positions. We are like, oh my goodness, what did we just do? And it's going to be another 5 years of misery.
Okay.
And what negative ethnicity has done for us is that it has always blindfolded us. It's our serious blind side as Kenyans. And here we are 58 years later. And if Kenya was a woman who's 58 or a man who's 58, you would expect them to be reasonably, sober people, and sober financially, sober in their homes, sober in their work. But if Kenya is a man, is a confused man who lives off his friends like China, and the money he gets, he squanders it on alcohol and whatever else he wants to. I mean, if Kenya was a human being, you would run.
All right. If Kenya was a husbandman, you would not touch him.
Not with a million football.
Oh, absolutely, absolutely amazing, amazing, amazing. That's a serious indictment. But I like what you're talking about, the two blind spots. The ethnic card,
yes,
and the suit, the voting, the suit voting.
Yes.
In other words, and we have entrenched that thinking and that narrative,
yes,
within our system, that we are completely blind to it.
Absolutely blind.
That's a serious thing. Okay, before we end, is there something else that we are not talking about?
One thing that I want us to talk about, and I would like to draw an analogy, is from the dead man Lazarus. Lazarus dies, and Mary, Martha, call out for Jesus. And Jesus says it's not unto death, but Lazarus dies. But watch this. After Lazarus died, Jesus came. And when he came, he says, it's time for me to resurrect this person. If you look at the conversation between Martha and Jesus, it doesn't work. Martha is saying, oh, I know that, there will be resurrection later, not today. But the dreams, the hopes, and aspirations of Lazarus lie dead with him in that tomb. And Jesus has come and says, I am the resurrection, I am the life. The dreams, the hopes, the aspirations of this man have to come back to life. And people begin to help Jesus. They're telling Jesus, oh, it might be a bit messy in there. It might be smelling. Jesus, we don't think that you will be doing this. And here we are 58 years later with people who fought for independence that are about to die, and they're dying in shame and reproach. High cost of living. They can't afford to get a decent meal in a day. We have a youth, educated youth, that has nothing productive to do. We have people who are working, and they have to support so many other people. We are a nation whose people, whose dreams, aspirations are dead. And the only way that we are hoping that this can turn around is if I got a job in Dubai or left the country. Not everyone can go to Dubai. Not everyone can go to another country. But unfortunately, the voters in this country are telling Jesus, if you try to remove this guy is smelly. Just leave him dead.
We got to wrap it down. Okay.
And it is time for us, if our hopes and dreams and aspirations are dead, it is time for us to acknowledge that we are in a bad place and choose a totally new leadership.
Absolutely. Absolutely. There you are. It's time for us to choose a new leadership. Faith Wairimu, Apostle Wairimu, Faith is your candidate. I am not her campaign manager, but you have had it for yourself. It's up to you to decide. Please don't waste your vote, as they always say. And that's all we had for you today. God bless you so much. Thank you for watching Elevate TV and watching this particular program. I've been your host, Godfrey Gishuki. This is the Gigi Report. We'll see you another day, same time, same channel. God bless you. Have a good evening. Bye for now.